tickets not available, standing room only last night at Victoria University. And certainly some good PR in terms of the build-up towards the free speech debate at the Victoria University. There's nothing like getting cancelled to make some headlines. Jonathan Ayling from the Free Speech Union joins us now. Jonathan, kia ora.
Atamari.
It was a contentious build-up to a free speech debate, but you survived. First question, though, was it actually a debate? Technically, was it a little bit sort of a watered down, well, you talk, then a series of interviews and then some comments from the crowd rather than an actual robust Oxford-style have at you?
So this was never going to be an Oxford-style debate, but certainly I'd expected there would be some form of dialogue and discussion.
Yep.
And exactly, it was just a few days before the event. We had a pre-meet with all the panelists,
Yep.
all 10 of them in the end, because
Wow.
It seemed everyone and their dog ended up having the talking stick at some point. And unfortunately, it was a series of vignettes, really, of 5 to 8 minute interviews. I said my piece, someone else said their piece, and never were the two allowed to meet. And really, to me, that was very unfortunate. I mean, ultimately, Andrew, I would say a lot of publicity, a lot of attention around the issue of free speech at universities, free speech generally within our institutions and the opposition. It's under the crucial role it plays in our society. But last night's event was largely a waste of time. I think waste of my time, waste of the other panelists' time, waste of the university's time and money. So I'm not sure if any of us really walk out of this as winners. It was a lot of hot takes, a lot of sound clips of what we already knew one side was going to say or the other side was going to say. And the value in this is where those two meet. They interact, hopefully in a constructive, civil way, but in a way that does test and tease and allow better ideas to emerge. And because we were not allowed to address the other parties, we were not allowed to talk at all on a panel discussion. I'm not sure really if anything has been taken away from this.
But isn't it good news for free speech that 10 dogs had the talking stick, as it were? That there were 10 different opinions delivered to the same audience, that we weren't just going to hear our particular dog say the things that we wanted them to say, that there was a crowd of people who heard views and opinions that they may not have agreed with in a public setting, and yes, a debate would have been better. But was there at least some value that there was a diversity of opinion in a public space, an academic institution even?
But there wasn't, Andrew. That's the entire point. Had there been 10 different perspectives there, I would entirely agree. There weren't. There were 2 perspectives across 10 talking points. And so there were 2 participants, myself and one other, across the 2 panels who were defending free speech. And then there were 8 participants saying effectively the same thing. The only difference between those 8 participants were the colour of the skin or who they prefer in bed. And beyond that, actually, there was nothing different with what they were saying. So when we talk about diversity, this is something we hear a lot in our society nowadays. And it's hard to disagree with. We've got to this point, I would say, as a good thing in our society, where we look to celebrate the differences between people and the different. I shudder to use the phrase, but lived experiences can have some value. But really, what is ultimately valuable in that academic context is the diversity of opinion, diversity of perspective, diversity of intellectual position. And there was very little diversity in that. It was just stacking one side with a lot more time to talk than the other.
Having said that, though, and look, I'm working hard to find the sunny side of the street on this one, Jonathan, but that you were able to speak at all, that you weren't banned, that you weren't cancelled, that in the university in our nation's capital, that there was some level of freedom of speech for the CEO of the Free Speech Union. In some ways, wasn't that a small victory for freedom of speech? Because it wasn't looking like that was going to happen.
No, that's exactly right, and I appreciate your insistence that we find something to take away optimistically and always the bright side. No, thank you for that, Andrew. You're absolutely right. it's been quite a saga getting here, and a number of your listeners will have followed the sequence of events that have led us to this point. I don't think the panel discussion itself delivered much value,
Yep.
but what it did show was that, for better or worse, the Vice Chancellor at Victoria University is wanting to try and facilitate these conversations more. My suggestion to him would be actually allow some conversation that might help, but at least the event went forward. At least no one was cancelled. I would say also that while those who were in the room itself were clearly on one side of the issue, there were, I understand, about 1,000 people watching it live, not in the room. And I would suggest that probably they were they did not share the perspectives of many of the participants there, that depending on the color of your skin, depending on your lived experience, depending on your sexual orientation, speech rights should operate differently. And so I think probably, if anything, while we may not have learned much one from another, at least we could learn how to articulate some of these arguments clearly. And there's real value in that. I would also say that it illustrates the state of free speech in our universities.
Yep.
And this is one of the arguments of free speech. The first argument is free speech helps us learn.
Yep.
And sometimes that doesn't happen. The second argument is it also reveals who the idiots are in our midst. And I would say some of the comments and some of the positions espoused last night are just fundamentally unintelligent. I don't mean that to be ad hominem, but just the content of the argument. It's not evidence-based. It's not reinforced by research. It's a series of platitudes that no one largely disagrees with, but that actually don't mean much in the end. And I would say revealing the fact that these are some of the deans of our law schools and senior professors, etc., I would suggest that that there's value in us being able to identify the state of play and the fact that the work of the Free Speech Union is really important. Instead of backing away, we need to double down in this space.
Exactly. Now, I would have honestly paid good money to see their right of reply to you calling them stupid idiots.
I didn't call them stupid idiots. I called them unintelligent.
Well, yes, yeah, I'm paraphrasing, of course, which is the danger of free speech sometimes. But what's your takeaway, Jonathan? What are you taking away the day after the so-called free speech debate? What have you learnt to this that you will apply to your role and your strategy at the Free Speech Union?
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to address that, because I kind of left feeling somewhat bruised last night. It's not, if feeling uncomfortable is the same thing as feeling unsafe, and that should be used to shut down events, it should have been shut down first thing last night, because I did not feel comfortable in that room. But I showed up and made the case nonetheless. Yeah. And I walked away feeling a little bit bruised. And I don't know if it was a great use of anyone's time or money. I don't know if it was incredibly productive. But nonetheless, as we've discussed, there are some takeaways. And if I can just say this, Andrew, one of them would be two former cops, my father's age roughly, who had flown up from Christchurch just to be there to support me in that conversation. They said, you're going into the lion's den, and we want to just be there with you. And I don't know if in my professional life anyone has ever done anything that I thought that was such an incredibly generous, incredibly kind thing to do. Yep. And I apologize, I don't remember their names. I really wish I did, because I just found that to be exactly what we need in this, for people to stand up and go, no, actually, I'm with that guy. It's not a popular perspective, but listen to what he's saying. It's actually important that we're able to press into some of these ideas. And they would have felt uncomfortable in that room probably as well. And so what I take away is the incredible support that, despite the fact, and I would suggest, Andrew, unfortunately, New Zealand is an increasingly classist space, depending on your professional status, depending on your income, depending on your educational achievement. We can almost map what you're going to think on some of these issues just across those metrics, and that's not good for our society. Yeah. It's not good when these sectors become homogenous. And so I would say the support that we've seen from a variety of sectors saying, actually, you guys, we don't agree with everything you're doing, but you're making an important case for the basic set of rules that our society are going to use to navigate some complex subjects. And I think, if anything, that just means there's a team in our corner who are asking us to press on, and that means an awful lot.
Hey, thank you for taking that risk and pressing into that space of discomfort. I'm not sure that that your life was in danger, but it certainly was a difficult space to be in. And hey, if there's people listening to this at the moment who would also like to support you, not necessarily flying to stand by your side as people sneer at you, but actually by supporting the right for free speech in this country, including those sneering people from Victoria University last night. If people wanted to step into that space, fsu.nz, of course, the place to go to keep informed and to be a part of the process. Jonathan, very much appreciate what you do. Thanks for taking the time to chat today.
Kia ora.
Hey, thanks very much for joining us in the Rhema studio. Thanks very much for watching the interview. It's kind of nice to have an audience, actually. And if you did like what you watched, then do give us a like, do give us the thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more interviews like that one, or perhaps even better, subscribe and those interviews will come straight to you. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.